Europe post-World War II was devastated, but from those ashes like a phoenix rise some of the most influential filmmakers and movements in cinema history. At a time when people needed more than just entertainment, a movement arose in Italy that would depict struggles of ordinary people and highlight the societal issues present in post-war Italy. Italian Neorealism, which is arguably one of the most important movements in film history, still inspiring filmmakers to this day. Before Italian Neorealism, films were often glamorous and depicted perfect households and nuclear families. These films would become to be known as white telephone films. This term was used to jokingly refer to the perfectness and unobtainable life the films depicted. The name came from the white telephones often used in the films, whilst ordinary people couldn't even afford one. These films depicted life ordinary people couldn't relate to. Mussolini used said films as state propaganda to promote his fascist ideology. Films in the US were also rather glamorous, and studio system focused largely on stars such as Cary Grant, Marilyn Monroe, and James Dean, to name a few. But as the war was coming to its end and Mussolini was no longer in power in Italy, many directors could finally tell their stories without censorship, which would give birth to Italian Neorealism. Directors like Roberto Rossellini, Vittorio De Sica, and Luchino Visconti told stories of ordinary people, realistically highlighting the societal issues in Italy. One of the most important films for Italian Neorealism was Roma Città Aperta, or Rome Open City, which arguably jump-started the movement in 1945. Some earlier movies might also be considered, but this is one of the best early examples of the movement. It has all the major characteristics of an Italian Neorealist film, such as on-location shooting, locals or unknown actors, and it depicts the difficulties and struggles of ordinary people. These are the characteristics that would later become to define the movement and the films to come. These are the very characteristics that would help depict life after the war and in poverty realistically. As Roberto Rossellini himself stated, "I try to capture reality, nothing else." Rome Open City was filmed only months after the Nazi occupation in Italy had ended, and the script was based on real experiences of people during the occupation. This, along with on-location shooting, gives the film a tremendous sense of veracity. Shooting on the streets barely 2 months after the war meant that the locations would also tell a story. Dirty corridors and debris on the streets echo the horrors of war that raged just months earlier. Such elements in films of the time came from the limited resources. As studios in Rome were unusable, the filming took the streets. Italian neorealist films were also a reaction to Hollywood star system and the glamorous so-called white telephone films that came before, instead opting for a more realistic approach, and instead of well-known stars, actors were usually locals or unknown before the films. This is also the case for Rome Open City, with the exception of Anna Magnani and Aldo Fabrizi. The immediate legacy of Rome Open City is evident, and films such as Bicycle Thieves, Stromboli, and Umberto De are some of the greatest films in cinema history, reflecting the world through different perspectives. After World War II, ordinary people needed a voice to vocalize their struggles and needs, and Italian Neorealism gave them that. Films about workers, families, young people and elders, stories dealing with injustice, poverty and moral ambiguity. These stories find a deep sympathy for their characters, even at their worst, depicting them as righteous in their own flawed and damaged way. The true heroes of Italy. Let's take Bicycle Thieves for example, a film about a father trying to locate his stolen bike with his son. Antonio is a flawed character trying to provide for his family in desperate times when a bike he needs for the job is stolen. The desperation is immense, and the film views the harsh life of working class people at the end of their rope. At the heart of the film there is also the relationship between Antonio and his son, which has its ups and downs. At the end, when Antonio is caught trying to steal a bike, the reaction from his son is gut-wrenching. These films are about the human condition and seldom have happy endings. This is why Italian Neorealism was so important. It gave a voice to the desperate, to the struggling, to the people with no voice. Towards the end of the 1940s, Neorealism began to fall out of favor due to the Italian government claiming the films were slandering Italy. People also began to look for different kinds of entertainment when the economy started improving, which led to decline for the need for such films. But the effects of the movement can still be felt to this day in the works of directors such as Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, and more. Italian Neorealism laid the groundwork for films to come and enabled people with no voice to vocalize their struggles. Hello, and welcome to the Mise-En-Scène channel. This is my first video essay, and if you like it, consider liking and subscribing for more stuff like this, and maybe something different in the future.